The last train left at 11:40 p.m. That's what the old sign at the Black Hollow station said, a small, forgotten town in the Colorado countryside. The snow fell heavily that night, covering the tracks as if the whole world were slowly being erased. My name is Ethan Walker, and to this day, I regret getting on that train. It all started after my father's funeral. We weren't close. In fact, we went years without speaking. But when I received the news of his death, I traveled to Black Hollow to quickly sort everything out, sell the old house, sign papers, and leave. But a storm closed the highway. The only way to leave town that night was to take the last train to Denver. The station was practically empty. There was only an old man sleeping on a bench, a woman reading a book near the window, and the ticket attendant, who seemed too nervous for someone working alone. When I handed him my ticket, he grabbed my arm. "Listen," he whispered. "If the train stops before the tunnel, don't get off." I frowned. "What?" But before I could ask more, the sound of the train echoed through the station. Lights emerged from the fog. Slow, white, too quiet. The train looked old, even though it still worked. The black paint was peeling, and the windows reflected the snow like dark mirrors. As soon as I got on, I immediately felt something strange. There was almost no one there, maybe 5 passengers in total. I chose a seat near the back and put on my headphones, trying to forget the bizarre atmosphere of that place. Then the train started moving. For the first 40 minutes, everything seemed normal, until we entered the forest. That's when the lights flickered for the first time. The entire train car went dark for 2 seconds. When it came back on, the woman who had been sitting in front of me appeared in another seat. Closer. My heart raced. I looked around, confused. Maybe I just hadn't noticed her changing seats. But then I noticed something worse. All the passengers were in absolute silence. No one moved. No one looked at their cell phone. No one talked. It was as if they were waiting for something. I tried to ignore it. I picked up my cell phone. No signal. Of course. Snow. Mountains. Normal. Then I heard the sound. 3 metallic knocks coming from the ceiling. Knock. 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 The old man sitting in the corner slowly raised his head and murmured. It started. My stomach froze. I looked out the window. The forest outside seemed endless. Dark, without a single light. Then the train slowed down. The brakes screeched violently, and the entire carriage plunged into silence. Stopped in the middle of the forest. My heart began to beat faster. Then the sound system hissed. A distorted voice came through the speakers. "Don't look out the window." All the passengers immediately lowered their heads. All of them, except me. I felt a chill run down my spine. What the hell is that? I looked at the woman next to me. She seemed terrified. Then she repeated softly, "Don't look." But it was too late, because something appeared outside the train. A silhouette, too tall, too thin, standing between the trees. The face, it didn't look human. My body froze. The creature slowly tilted its head towards the window, and then smiled. The lights in the carriage went completely out. Someone started screaming in another compartment. The whole train shook. I heard footsteps running on the ceiling. Quick footsteps. Heavy footsteps. It was as if something was walking above us. The lights came back on, and one of the passengers had disappeared. The empty seat still swayed slowly. No one reacted. No one asked anything. That's when I realized the worst. Everyone on that train already knew this was going to happen. I stood up immediately. What the hell is going on here? The old man stared at me with tired eyes. "You got on a wrong train, kid." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" He took a few seconds before answering. "This train isn't going to Denver. Not anymore." At that moment, the train started moving on its own again. But now, there was something running alongside it in the forest. Something following the carriages in the dark. Something was running alongside the train. I could only see flashes between the snow-covered trees. A tall shadow. Fast. Impossible. The entire carriage began to vibrate violently as the wind battered the windows. Then, bang, something hit the side of the train. A woman screamed in the other compartment. The lights flickered again, and for the first time, I noticed a detail that chilled me to the bone. The windows were locked from the outside. There were old metal bars covering part of the glass, as if it had been prepared to prevent something from entering or leaving. My heart raced. What the hell is this train? The old man sighed slowly. He seemed tired, not scared, tired. In 1987, a train disappeared in this forest during a storm just like this one. No one in the carriage said a word. They just listened, as if they already knew the story. 113 passengers disappeared that night, he continued. They never found the bodies, nor the train. I swallowed hard. That's impossible. That's what everyone thinks the first time. First time. Those words made my stomach sink. First time. Before he could answer, the train slowed down again. More screams echoed through the carriages ahead. Then we heard a voice coming from the loudspeakers. Next stop, Hollow Creek. The old man closed his eyes immediately. The woman next to me began to cry softly. No, not this time. I looked out the window. There was no town, only forest, snow, absolute darkness. And then the train stopped. The doors opened by themselves. The icy air immediately invaded the carriage. Outside, there was a station. Old, abandoned. The dim lights flickered on a rusty sign. Hollow Creek. My blood froze, because I knew that name. It was the town where the 1987 train accident happened. A town abandoned for decades. Don't get off, the old man said quickly. No matter what you hear. But at that moment, I heard my father's voice. Outside, Ethan, my body froze. No, that was impossible. My father was dead. The voice came again. Closer. Son. I looked out the window and saw him standing on the platform, wearing the same black coat from the funeral. My heart began to race violently. This isn't real, I murmured, but it felt real. Too real. My father slowly raised his hand, as if pleading for help. Then I heard another passenger stand up. A man at the end of the carriage began to walk towards the open door. My daughter, he whispered, crying. Outside, a little girl appeared in the snow, momentary, calling for him. The old man tried to hold her back. No, but the man broke free and ran off the train. As soon as his feet touched the platform, the station lights went out. Everything plunged into darkness. And then we heard the scream. A horrible scream. Desperate. Too human. Something began to drag the man through the snow. The lights came back on for a second, and I saw dozens of figures surrounded the platform. Tall, thin, with limbs that were too long. Their faces looked distorted like people melting. The man disappeared among them. The train door closed immediately, and the train started moving again on its own. The woman next to me was crying uncontrollably. He called my mother last time. She whispered. I looked at her, confused. Last time, she took a few seconds to answer. I've been on this train before. My blood ran cold. What? 8 years ago. My heart almost stopped. Nobody really leaves here, she said, looking at the empty corridor. The train always comes back. The lights started flashing faster now. The metal of the carriages creaked as if something enormous were pressing against the ceiling. Then I heard the footsteps again, running above us. This time faster, heavier. Thump, thump, thump. Something pierced the ceiling from one carriage to another. Hunting. The entire train fell into absolute silence. No one breathed. Then, a child began to laugh in the carriage ahead. A low laugh. Wrong. Slow. The old man stood up immediately, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. Don't look down the aisle, he said, but it was too late, because something appeared in the doorway between the carriages. A child, or at least it looked like one. It was wearing old clothes, completely soaked with snow. Her head was bowed, momentary. Then she slowly raised her face, and there were no eyes, only darkness. The creature smiled, and in that instant, all the lights on the train went out again. Darkness engulfed the entire carriage. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of snow hitting the sides of the train, and that breathing. Slow, damp, very close. No one moved. No one dared speak. Then I heard a whisper coming from the aisle. "Ethan." My body froze instantly. It was my father's voice again, but now inside the train. I held my breath while trying to see something in the dark. Then the emergency lights came on. Dim, red, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The eyeless child was no longer at the door. He was in the middle of the carriage. Closer, momentary. The other passengers kept their heads down, as if looking directly at it was forbidden. The old man spoke almost without moving his lips. "Don't show fear." My heart was beating so hard it seemed impossible to hide anything. The creature slowly tilted its head toward me, and then it began to walk. Small steps, slow, dragging. Each step made the wagon creak. She stopped right next to a woman sitting by the window. The woman began to tremble violently. Tears streamed down her face. The creature brought its face close to her ear, as if whispering something. Then the woman began to cry desperately. No, I'm so sorry." My stomach churned. The creature seemed to know the fears of every person on that train. The guilt, the losses, the regrets. Then the woman slowly stood up, as if hypnotized, and walked towards the door between the carriages. "Hey," I shouted without thinking. The old man grabbed my arm with absurd force. "Don't touch her." The woman opened the door of the next carriage and disappeared into the darkness. 2 seconds later, we heard a horrible sound coming from outside, something tearing flesh. The screams lasted only a few seconds, then silence. My whole body trembled. "What are these things?" I asked. The old man looked at the floor before answering. "The train feeds them." "Train? This isn't an accident. It's a trap." The red lights started flickering again. The old man continued. "For decades, this train has appeared during severe storms. Some people get on thinking they're going home, but they end up here. And nobody can get off?" He finally looked me in the eyes. "Only those the train chooses." My heart sank. "And how does it choose?" Before I could answer, the sound system crackled violently. Then a female voice echoed through the speakers. "Last stop." All the passengers began to panic at the same time. For the first time, the woman next to me began to pray. Another man ran to the window, trying to break the glass. The old man turned pale. "No, not yet." The train began to slow down once more. But this time there was something different outside. It wasn't a forest, nor a station. It was an entire city. Dark, ancient, with destroyed buildings covered in snow. Dim lights shone among the empty streets. And there were people, hundreds of them, standing, mourning, watching the train pass. My heart almost stopped, because they all seemed dead, their faces pale, their eyes empty, like human mannequins abandoned in the cold. Then I realized something worse. Some of them were slowly tapping on the train windows as we passed, as if they wanted to get in. The doors began to open on their own, carriage by carriage. Clang, clang, clang. Screams echoed at the front of the train. The creatures were getting in. The old man stood up immediately. "Listen carefully," he said, holding my shoulders. "When the lights go out again, run to the locomotive." "What?" "It's the only chance." My body froze. "And you?" He gave a tired smile. "Sad. I've been stuck here for too long." Before I could answer, the lights went out completely, and the screams began. The sound of people being dragged through the corridors echoed in the dark. Something violently slammed against the walls of the carriage. I heard footsteps coming directly towards me. Then I ran. I almost fell through the door between the carriages while everything around me plunged into chaos. The next compartment was destroyed, blood on the windows, suitcases scattered, and on the ceiling, handprints, as if people had been pulled upwards. I kept running desperately. Behind me, I heard that childish laughter again. Closer, faster. The emergency lights flashed as I passed carriage after carriage. Then I heard my father's voice again. "Ethan, wait." I didn't look back. I kept running, but something grabbed my arm. Hardly. I turned desperately and saw my father standing in the aisle. Exactly like at the funeral. Same face, same look, but something was wrong. His eyes were completely black. And then he smiled. A smile too wide for a human face. "You should have stayed with me." The entire train shook violently. And in that instant, I realized the locomotive was right ahead. But something enormous was waiting for me at the last door. The locomotive was right ahead, but something was waiting for me. The creature occupied almost the entire final aisle of the train. Too tall, its long arms dragged across the metallic floor as it stood motionless before the driver's cab door. Its face seemed to constantly change. One second it was human, the next just a dark, shapeless mass. My whole body froze. Behind me, I heard the screams getting closer. The creatures were coming. I had no choice. I ran. The creature lunged immediately. Fast. Too fast. It crossed the aisle in seconds, but the instant it tried to reach me, the train lights exploded violently. A white flash illuminated everything. The creature let out a horrible sound, like dozens of voices screaming at the same time. Without thinking, I threw myself against the locomotive door. It opened. I fell inside desperately and slammed the door shut behind me. Then I realized something impossible. There was no engineer. The locomotive was empty. Completely empty. The levers moved on their own. The train continued moving through the snow without anyone controlling it. My heart raced as I tried to understand it all. It was then that I saw a photograph attached to the rusty dashboard. An old photograph, yellowed. It showed the train crew from 1987, and in the center of the image was my father. My blood ran cold. No, that didn't make sense. My father would have been at most 15 years old back then. I slowly lowered the photo, and behind it was a handwritten phrase. "No one gets off twice." The entire train began to shake violently. The creatures were banging on the outside of the locomotive. The windows were cracking little by little. Then a memory suddenly returned. An old memory I had completely forgotten. When I was a child, my father told me about a train accident. He said he almost died in a storm in Colorado, but he never explained what really happened. My heart sank. He had been on that train before, and he managed to get out. That's why the train returned. That's why I was there. Something needed to take his place. The knocking on the door intensified. Clang, clang, clang. My father's voice echoed from the other side. Ethan opened the door. Tears began to stream down my face, because part of me still wanted to believe it was really him. Then I heard another voice behind me. "Calm, lower, don't listen." I turned immediately. The old man from the carriage was sitting in the corner of the locomotive, as if he had always been there. My body froze. "How did you get here?" He just smiled wearily. "I never left here." The train slowed down again. Outside, the dead city emerged from the snow. The creatures filled the streets. Watching, waiting. The old man slowly stood up and walked to the control panel. "The train needs someone to keep running." My heart sank. What does that mean? He stared at me silently for a few seconds. Then he said, "One passenger always stays." The lights began to go out one by one. The creatures banged on the windows more violently. The glass began to shatter. "You can get out," said the old man, "but someone needs to take your place." My whole body trembled. "No." He gave a small, sad smile. "I'm tired, boy. At that moment, I realized he had been trapped there since 1987. Decades. Alone, guiding that cursed train. Outside, an old platform emerged from the snowstorm. The locomotive doors began to open slowly. The old man grabbed my shoulder. When I tell you to jump, my heart raced. And you just looked ahead, at the tracks disappearing into the snow. Finally, I'll get some rest. The creatures began to invade the locomotive. Dark arms reached through the broken windows. Screams echoed behind us. Then the old man pulled the main lever. The entire train began to decelerate violently. Now, I ran. I jumped from the locomotive directly into the snow. I rolled across the frozen platform as the train roared past me. I stood up desperately and saw for the last time the locomotive disappearing into the storm. The old man was still inside, sitting alone, the creatures surrounding the carriages. Then the train disappeared completely into the snow, as if it had never existed. The police found me hours later near the tracks, almost frozen. They said I was in shock. Nobody believed my story. Of course, to them, I just survived a storm. But before leaving the hospital, a policeman handed me something found in my coat pocket. An old photograph, the same one the locomotive. The train crew from 1987. And on the back, there was a new handwritten phrase. A phrase that wasn't there before. See you on the next trip. To this day, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night hearing a distant sound. A train whistle. Even though I live hundreds of kilometers from any railway. And whenever that happens, the clock reads exactly 11:40 p.m.